What's up, guys? Tony here. Here we are for the last episode of the season. Not the last episode of the podcast, I swear. But here we are, episode 10, season 2. Very excited to be here. I have a great guest, Eric Finkenbinder, ABC 27 News Meteorologist here. So we're going to talk a little bit about what he does. Talk about, I'm going to start off with recapping the season as well. And have a great conversation in the shed as always.
We'll get into talking about life.
Absolutely. Life is great. So, but like I said, I mean, I said this earlier today to myself, I can't believe I'm already at the last episode of the season. Like, so much has happened. I started off, my cousin was producing the podcast, and now I have Neil here. Shout out my boy Neil Muro. Thank you for everything as always. I know he's behind the scenes, but hey, he does a lot for us. But I'm down one co-host, but hey, that's Nate and I. We're doing really well. Heck, I was talking to him earlier today. He sounds like he's doing great. Recovered from surgery and everything. It's awesome. I bought a house. I got a dog, and here we are at the end of the season.
What more could you ask for?
Right. It's been a great, crazy season. I had a lot of great guests. We talked a lot about great things, and I want to start talking. We're going to talk about you, and
we can do that. And I'll tell you what, for those that do work behind the scenes, I have a lot of respect because I totally understand, and that's sometimes just as important, if not more. Getting something like this, and I think what you're doing, this podcast is great.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I very much appreciate that. And I wanna get that. I know a lot of people know who you are. I told a couple of my friends you were coming on, and they were like, "What? No way! You got the weather guy on your podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's a great guy." But tell them a little bit about you. I mean, obviously we know who you are from ABC 27, but
so you know the weather side.
Yeah.
So we can talk a little bit more about the personal side too. But I consider myself a local. So I grew up in Perry County. And just one of 5. So I have an older brother and sister and a younger brother and sister. So I was kind of the one in the middle, but the one that probably was the one that socialized the most.
Okay.
And I always I was interested in trying so many different things. I played a lot of sports, just about every sport you could think of except football.
Okay.
Sorry, I apologize.
That's okay. That's all right.
Mom said soccer was safer.
I played soccer too. And honestly, same reason. My mom would not let me play football. I wanted to be the kicker, but at least do that. But couldn't even do that.
Yep.
So,
but then a couple of my friends from school, we got done with practice. I forget what practice it was, but they were doing some sort of musical tryouts, and we thought they needed some dancers, and we thought, well, this will be funny. We'll just go out there and kind of goof off, and we did, and they sent us a message back and say, "Yep, you're on."
Oh wow!
We're like, okay, so it was Grease.
Awesome.
And we liked it, and that was really the first experience that I got to be out front, but. That being on TV and on the stage, that's sort of the latter part of the enjoyment. To me, it was always the science, and so I grew up on a farm,
right, a
small beef farm, and how I got into meteorology and how I liked it. It wasn't a certain storm or hurricane or snow. I just recall when I was a kid that there was a little National Weather Service box. It was fake wood. You press this big space bar button. And I remember a gentleman called Victor Cruz, a meteorologist from State College, Pennsylvania, and he would give the forecast. And I just, there's odd things that you remember growing up. And I just remember my dad being in the rocking chair, listening to the forecast, planning his week, in the spring and summer, what we're going to be doing on the farm. And to me, that I just love that time. And it was that memory of that and just me enjoying the science and kind of got me into enjoying meteorology and going for meteorology at Penn State.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's where you went to school. You went to Penn State, got your degree, and came back. And I mean, how did you get into ABC 27?
It's certainly an enjoyable sport, which, by the way, when I told my parents, I said, I'm interested in meteorology, they're like, okay, let's see what happens.
Right.
It's not, one of your normal jobs. And obviously a lot of people that do go to college, you end up finding a different path than what you originally thought. But the more I got into weather, the more I really enjoyed it. I wanted to know why or how, the atmosphere worked and everything else. But Chuck Rhodes was also a huge inspiration to me.
Okay.
You know, if you draw a straight line from my house to his, it's probably 3 miles. So he was a Duncannon guy, and everyone knew Chuck, and Duncannon. I remember going down into the post office one time, and I saw Chuck, and I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, that's him.
Right.
And I remember I was like, okay, I got to talk to him. And I mentioned about going to school in meteorology, and he was like, oh, you should come on down, and take a look at the place and just get a tour. And I was just, it was great. It was awesome. I never did end up doing that, but I did shadow across the street at 21 one time. But when I graduated school, I was sending out resumes to places I wanted to go: Michigan, Wisconsin, Alaska, Montana.
Right. A lot of hunting area.
Exactly.
So.
Hunting, fishing, the stuff that I enjoy. And I got a call to go out to Bend, Oregon.
Wow. Okay.
Which I had no clue where that was. And they said, we want you to come out here and be our chief meteorologist. And when they told me the salary, I was like, I don't know if I can even.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you salary, but I was like, I was making more delivering pizzas at the time than what I was. And I thought, okay, so I really need to focus, because it is difficult to kind of get that foot in the door. So I started sending out just hand delivering resumes to stations across the state. I would drive to the stations, and Johnstown station said, yep, come on out. And I was a weekend meteorologist for 6 weeks.
Wow.
Before I got a call from the news director at WHTM.
Okay.
And they were looking for a weather producer, so someone to make the graphics,
right,
and work behind the scenes. And I got to spend 5 years with Chuck, which was, I learned a lot more about the business those 5 years than probably a lot of the information I used at Penn State, in meteorology. So that was probably one of the most enjoyable and most rewarding 5 years that I had in the business.
That's awesome. I mean, like you said, behind the scenes is so important. I mean, you're learning everything about it. And now you're doing the front end side of it, so you get the whole scope of the business. I mean, that's so important, because like you said, you admire how much he's doing behind the scenes for me, and just vice versa with the people that you work with. It's so important. Like, it's so cool. I mean, you've been, how long have you been with ABC 27 now?
17 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been watching the weather that long. All right. Cool. Honestly, that's where ABC.
Where were you 17 years ago?
Here. I mean, what goes into the news every night? Like, tell me, like, how do you how do you get prepped for it? How do you pretty much make it happen every day?
Sure. Well, first off, 30, 40 years ago, news and sports is what dominated the show. Weather was sort of, if we have a little bit of time.
Right.
Fast forward to now, and it's the complete opposite. Weather is the main reason why people watch. Local news, over the last year, the importance of local news and getting information, especially during this time, I can certainly see how valuable it is and how valuable it will be. But my typical day, and again, it's weather doesn't stop on a holiday or on a weekend. So,
no. Especially not recently.
Yeah. So I'm second shift. So I used to work mornings too, which mornings, you begin your day at like 2 a.m.
Right.
Get in there because the shows start at 4:30. But for me, I'll get in there around 3 o'clock, 3:30. That's on a quiet day.
Yeah.
And it's not something where we already have the forecast made for us. We make our own forecast, and we put our name on that. Our face that is in front of that forecast too. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't quite understand is, we sit down and we actually look at the weather data, we look at the models, and we make our own forecast, which I'm often proud of. Now, obviously with all the snowstorms, it was a tricky one this year, but so it'll take me about an hour and a half to 2 hours to take care of the forecasting. Then obviously we have shows starting at 5 that goes all the way through 7:30. Get a little bit of a break, and then the 11 o'clock too. But while all that's going on, social media.
Yeah.
You obviously that's important for you too.
Oh yeah. Hey, social media makes everybody aware. That's what I've learned.
Yep. Websites. Doing Facebook Live. There's just so many ways that that people stay connected, and it's never just one solid entity now. It's so many different things.
Yeah, you really have to spread yourself. It's in they always said don't spread yourself too thin, but like in social media, you kind of have to spread yourself in a lot of different ways. And like you said, you're not just doing it on the news anymore. You're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're doing a lot of different things. Heck, people I know, I've seen weathermen on TikTok, like just doing
Oh
different
my.
things. Like it's like there's so much to get yourself out there. I mean, obviously the local news, that's everybody's watching the local news for the most. I know my mom still does, for example. There's so much to it, and there's so many avenues, especially like from the podcast end. I'm able to express on many different like avenues. I got to catch certain crowds. It comes down to age, it comes down to who's using what. I mean, there's so much to it. I mean, but I get it, like the process behind everything. You got to prep, you got to learn, you got to educate yourself and get ready for it.
There's so much, for watching the news on TV. There's always that audience that's what people have been used to and growing up.
Yeah.
But then there's some people like, well, I don't watch TV. I get my information from Twitter. So I mean, there's reasons. Well, okay, we want to make sure we accommodate that group. And then for me, for example, I don't watch TV either.
Yeah.
I'll watch YouTube. So it's like, okay, well, how do we go in that direction? Making sure,
Right.
we're making sure we get our information out there.
Yeah, it's important. You're trying to catch more. I mean, especially like the local area. You are giving that information to the local area. They're paying attention. You just got to find out where.
Yeah.
So yeah, but now tell us a little bit about the life as a farmer. I mean, how do you balance it all? That's a lot. If you're still you're still in the farm, right?
Yep.
Speaking of farming stuff, I don't know if you talk about bees. I know you have a bee farm.
I do have a beehive too. Yeah.
Okay.
beekeeping.
Well, tell us a little bit about that.
Sister was like, make sure you ask about the bees.
The bees. I want to hear about that.
My job at home, and I don't. Basically, I'm a stone's throw from the farm, which
Okay.
is great. So I don't necessarily live on it, but literally I wake up and there it is.
Yeah.
And my siblings, we all have sort of responsibilities that we all kind of, and I love it that it is a family farm,
Yeah.
and we also sort of work together towards it. But it complements each other. My job at the station, my job and what I do on the farm, because as we were just talking about, there's so many ways you have to stay connected as a meteorologist. It's overwhelming,
Yeah.
and people have their ways of getting that mental escape and just kind of getting out and getting that air, stress relief, whether it's pumping iron, playing sports, or whatever. Having a shed podcast.
Yeah. Right. Right.
For me, it's connecting with the farm.
Okay.
So to me, it gets me established mentally for the day before I actually go into work. So it kind of helps me.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
and it's always good to have that as your avenue. I mean, you have to have something. I've always, I talk about mental health a lot on this podcast. I mean, that's part of the reason why I even started doing this. I mean, and it's so important when you have. I mean, everybody has a job or something that they're doing. You have to have a source of income. That's just what it is. But to be able to do a passion on the side or do something that you enjoy that gets the mental. You have to be mentally there. I mean, you're not going to be able to perform at anything. Like you can't do your job. Like,
Exactly.
I know you can't.
Yep. Yeah,
So-
and I see that even with all the storms that's going on. It's like, okay, just time to go for a walk.
Right.
And I'll say, all right, girls, let's we'll get our winter coats on. And as much as they don't like trudging through the snow, I can tell at the end it helps me. And I mean, for them being around me, I want to make sure I'm not making it miserable for them either. So
Right.
it certainly helps me, and I can tell it does help them too. Yeah.
Now with the farm, I mean, animals. Like other than tell us about what kind of animals do you have on the farm? Like,
Have you ever heard of limousine?
No.
Okay.
To be honest, no.
Well, you've heard of Angus, right?
Yes.
Angus beef. Okay, so limousine is a type of beef cattle.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so we raise beef cattle, so they're red.
Right.
And they tend to be a little bit bigger framed,
Okay.
but for some odd reason, and they're French.
Okay. All right. That's
There's all the
pretty cool.
information. They're a little bit more of a leaner type of animal, but my dad, it was a dairy farm when he was growing up. When he took over, he kind of converted into more of a beef farm. My brothers, they've expanded into crop farming.
Okay.
My responsibility is more on the haymaking.
Okay.
Since it has to do with weather forecasts, making sure it gets cut, dried, baled, stored, so it doesn't spoil. So, if I look a little bit out of it, on
Yeah.
TV, June, July, and August.
That's probably
yeah.
why.
And then people, it'll be, I tend to tan pretty quickly too. And all of a sudden I'll go from like, my winter, white, all of a sudden it's like, okay.
Right. You're always out. And I mean,
Yeah,
the
I
sun's
got
out
yep.
until what, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
those kind of nights. I mean, hell, it's a
Well,
lot.
we've got about, I think, 80 head of beef cattle.
Wow.
And I do have bees, so I am a beekeeper.
That's pretty cool.
There's a lot of things. We've got chickens, behind that we get a couple of dozen of eggs a week,
Right.
and so no, like I said, it's more of that mental avenue, mental escape for me, that I think everyone needs.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that's your escape. I mean, not everybody has to have their unique, way out, and that's beekeeping for you and the hay, and that's so cool. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, mine for me, like the podcast, obviously, this is definitely a great avenue. It's something that I was able to create with a lot of help, and now I'm able to make it my own kind of thing. And I played sports growing up myself. I was a soccer player, like we talked about.
Mhm.
That's always gotten me out, and it's so necessary. And you gotta have that to be able to grow and develop. So I mean, it's so important. And yeah.
And just a compliment to you too. You know how many other shed podcasts there are?
I saw when I started this, there were, I think, 3 of them.
Oh, really?
I think.
I didn't find any. So you did find 3 then.
I did find 3 that had the name close to mine.
Okay.
But I'm the only one that does it in a shed. I know
Well,
that for a fact.
Then this is the truly genuine shed podcast.
Yep.
And see, you're finding something that fits you specifically, and I mean, you're also getting a conversation going. And,
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to watch several other podcasts, and you're getting information out there, and you're finding something unique. You're finding a niche, and that's sort of the same thing for me when it comes to farming and things that I enjoy. It's just, I get to talk to some cattle or vent to some bees.
Right. Hey, and that's your own unique way.
Yep.
I mean, you, like you said, you have to have a niche in something.
Yeah.
And that's how you stand out. Like,
Yeah.
when I started this, I figured, like, the reason the podcast even started was my co-host and I sat here and we would just talk BS, have a good time, just have a good conversation. I said, why don't we put this online? Like, why don't we just do a podcast? And started doing that. And I've seen a lot of people start doing podcasts recently, but it's like, who can do it and say they do it in a shed, like an actual built shed? This was my grandfather's shed, where my grandfather owned birds. He had pigeons. Like, at one point, I want to say 200 plus pigeons before he died. This was like 10 years ago now, almost. And my dad, who just walked in, he took care of majority of the birds. I mean, I was mainly his job when my grandfather passed. But like, this is where everything was stored. Everything was like, there was literally food over here. This was not insulated the way it is now. He turned this into his own man cave.
You got the Schrader fireplace?
Yeah. Back in the day, he had an old one. When I was a kid, it was probably about half the size. And it was really cool. I mean, this is what he did. He'd come out here, drink, have a beer in front of the fire and watch TV or listen to the radio or whatever it may have been.
Tell hunting stories about this guy?
That one's up at the property. He tells a lot of stories, and he used to tell a lot of stories because there weren't too many of them around back then. But now he's got a lot of different heads and a lot of different.
The stories are probably getting longer too.
A little bit.
And the deer are getting bigger.
Now,
not to sidetrack, but pigeons. Now, I know aren't there like pigeon tournaments?
Yes.
Okay, so is that what he did?
My grandfather, he did 2 things. He used to race pigeons, like weddings, like actually have the dove releases and stuff like that. Like, I remember the process that he put behind it, like, just from learning from him. I didn't pick it up like an expert, but I would learn that he was taking pigeons. They're homing pigeons, so you have to fly them out a certain distance. He would take them a certain amount of distance away. They'd fly home. Take them farther. Do it again. I mean, that's an effort in itself. I mean, I witnessed my grandmother one time. We took them to Philadelphia, and they flew back. Yep. All but one.
Now these tournaments, is it the speed at which they get back?
From my understanding, yeah, it was like they had an actual path, and they had to, like, they were released at one point, and they had to come back to a certain point. I forget how it went, to be honest, but it was whoever was the fastest, pretty much.
That's, from my connection to the farm and to land and to bees and just the how incredible Mother Nature is.
Yeah.
When you got these birds that you can just, that they know where home is.
Yeah.
You know,
and-
I just think that kind of stuff to me always amazed me. And maybe that's why I was just always big-eyed when it came to the atmosphere. Like, how did that thunderstorm actually develop, you know?
Right. Funny enough, I was always scared growing up of like storms happening. Honestly, I was a big chicken when it came to that. But anytime that like I'd see a big storm or a big black cloud, I'm going, oh shit, I'm gonna go run. Like I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna look outside. I'm done with this. But weather recently, I mean, it's fascinating. Like
Yeah.
it's so cool to see. And I mean, you can look on YouTube and find crazy storms all over the country, like actual big tornadoes, because we don't get a whole lot of that here
Mhm.
because of mountains. That's what I've been taught. I mean, you'd probably know better than I would, but is that why we don't get hit with tornadoes like that, because of the mountains and everything?
Some of that.
Okay.
No, I mean, the back in 1985, you know, I'm sorry, I've got too many weather statistics. You know, you probably know a lot more about, you know, football or soccer. To me, it's just I'm an almanac. But 1985, there was an F5 tornado in Pennsylvania, so
Wow.
it does exist. It does happen. A lot of the times, your tornado alley and a lot of your tornadoes are caused by what we call dry lines,
Okay.
which is sort of like a front.
Yeah.
But instead of a difference in temperature, it's a difference in moisture. So you have very dry air running into very moist air. But flat, yeah, obviously open flat land, it has a much greater ability to kind of, these dry lines form down south, and you can see them from miles and miles away. Where
Right.
around here, the visibility is obscured. So anytime, you know, we do have a tornado, typically, you know, it's not where someone lives, you know, so you know, the times that we do have them, they're normally EF0s, EF1s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do know that, you know, when watching these systems, you know, that's what got me interested too. These storms, snow. The moment that I retire, I will make sure I sit out in the back porch and just, I've taken for granted the ability to watch a thunderstorm go by
Yeah.
or to sit and watch the snow. Because anytime that happens, you know, I've got to be, you know,
You're all over
on
the
social media,
place.
Twitter, this is what's happening and everything else. And I do kind of miss that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can only imagine. I mean, when all the craziness is happening, you're behind the scenes doing the work.
It is, and it's yeah. I just want to sit back, watch the snow, next to a Schrader
Nice.
fireplace, and
Right.
just enjoy it. It'll probably take another 30 years for that to happen, but I look forward to it.
And it's going to be rewarding at the same time. So now with, we talked about it, backtrack a little bit with like hunting and fishing. Now,
Mhm.
what do you, I mean, that's a lot of what you do in your spare time, when you get your spare time. I mean, I know my dad tells me about, you know, obviously you guys all have the property up there. Like, tell me a little bit about, you know, what you do with that.
Well, you know, springtime, it's fishing, you know, and it's
yeah.
I love that and trout fishing, and now I've got the girls where they can catch their own, but being in the woods, there's something about being in the woods. And I start hunting archery season in the fall. You know, the first couple of times I'm out, every 5 minutes, I'm doing this, putting it down, doing this, doing that. As it gets later in the season, and I'm a person that the longer I can wait to get something, the happier I am. My girls
Yeah.
are like, "Did you get anything?" And I'm like, "Nope." And they're like, "So you're going out again?" I said, "That's right." And I have a big smile on my face because I want to go back out.
You get to go
I
again.
I just love going back out. And the longer I go out in the season, the less I lose that connection to, you know, to the busy world, and
Right.
and just people always explain, you know, why do you like it so much? And there's that connection just to Mother Earth or something that just, you know, to see the sunrise on its own. It takes time for that to happen, just to feel the wind and just everything that's going on around. The wildlife all of a sudden just comes to life in the morning, and it's like a whole new day begins, and you're part of that new day, and you don't have any distraction at all. And that's what I do enjoy. I
That
also
is-
like seeing things like this though.
Hey,
Too.
the trophies in the end, that's the nice part of it.
Yeah.
But I see your point too.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't done a whole lot of hunting recently because I've just had my hand in a lot of different things. But when I was, and you know, growing up, he was my mentor in hunting and everything. And you know, I started being in the stand by myself. I mean, obviously a good amount of years ago now. But my thing with hunting is, I'm not the hunter, I'm the sleeper. As soon as I get up in the stand, I'm strapped in, I have my gun sitting there, and I'm sitting there looking in the clearing, and I'm going, okay, well, there's nothing going on. I'm stuck. I love the feeling, but then I'm just head back, boom, I'm out
Yeah.
every time. But
I told your dad too. I'll keep your seat warm, your stand warm. I don't mind going over there on the property. That's completely fine by me.
Hey, that works.
Yeah.
But no, it is like you said. It's very peaceful. You're to yourself. You're out, and it's you and nature, and
Yeah.
it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
You get to see a lot of different things going on. I mean, obviously, as a hunter, as soon as you hear anything move, your heart starts jumping a little bit. You're going, okay, what is that?
Yeah.
Starts moving. It's just a squirrel going up the tree or something like that.
Yeah.
At least that's me. I catch myself going, oh, I can hear him coming. Nope, it's not a deer. Okay.
I should explain too that how I met your dad. I thought there's a lot of hunters in sort of the area that we hunt, and I was
Right.
like, there's got to be some other ones that have the same interests that I have, and doing more of a management type approach to hunting. Yeah, I mean, you get a buck tag, and you apply for your doe tag, and year after year after year, you're just kind of filling tags. And I thought, well, what if we could be a bit more of creating more of a quality herd and management in a way that's healthier for the deer and more enjoyable for hunters too. So I still remember meeting at Little Buffalo with your dad and a couple of other landowners, and we talked about it, and it was like, okay, let's create this cooperative, and instead of having a 20, 30, 50 acre hunting location, well, now you're pulling together with all of these other landowners. So when people ask, where do you hunt? I was like, well, we've got 2,000 acres that's pulled together by
Right.
several different landowners, and we're kind of working together. So when he comes home with something like this, I feel like I'm a part of it, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
I've taken several deer that your dad has grown
Yeah, right.
on another mountain,
Right, and
So-
that should be a part of it. It's that like collaborative. You're working towards the same goal. You want to
Yep.
enjoy the same product. Enjoy having that in your shed or having it wherever you put it, and that is, as long as you're happy with it and everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
That's how you do anything. I mean, that's obviously with what you enjoy. That's what I do in my creative time. Like, I try to collaborate with a lot of different people that are creative to build a community, because for me personally, I see Harrisburg, not to get off topic, but like the city of Harrisburg is growing exponentially. And I see so many people doing a lot of cool things around here. And, I left and came back from college, but I see something and I want to be a part of it. And I want to help grow it, just like you guys are doing with the hunting. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I just need to get back in the stand. I haven't had the time, and I've been bugging because Dad's always like, "Did you get your license?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got my license. Do I use it? No, because
Yeah.
I should use it. I just didn't have the time. I had to buy my house this year, but now I should have more time."
Well,
So,
being a homeowner is a job in itself too. But
yeah,
I mean, like I said, your shed podcast, this is great, and it's that outlet. So I think that's pretty cool too.
it definitely takes its time too.
Now,
but
and I
hey,
did say I don't use my phone, getting into the season. I'll still text your dad and be like, "Hey, what are you seeing?"
yeah.
And vice versa, like, "Hey, here comes some," or something like that. So
We got our group chats too, and I was
the little
so-
network that we have, as you mentioned here about Harrisburg. And I mean, I see these networks, and it's great. And I love seeing that. And I love seeing things that people are doing that are thinking outside the box. And like I said, what you have is a great example. And I love that.
I appreciate that a lot. But, what do you want? Like, what advice do you have for people that want to do what you're doing? Like, what
See,
advice do you have?
Oh boy. Well, let me first off saying, if it's television, well, broadcasting, I tell you what, 10 years from now, it's going to be completely different. 20 years from now, completely different. I see that, and just how we're connecting now with other people. I mean, that's the way things are going to be going. But I mean, honestly, you have to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm doing this for most of my life, 5 days a week, sometimes, or like the last couple of weekends on weekends, and it is a major part of your life. You got to make sure it's something that, first off, I'm proud of. Like, you know what, this is something that I feel good about.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing, but it's something that, this is the only job that I've had that I have not looked at a clock.
That's all. I mean, that's the best
Yeah.
feeling. I've recently had that, and I mean, it's not because it's my current employer, but working at West Shore, I've been in recruiting now 3 years, And I mean, that's another reason I sidetrack, and that's another reason I started the podcast
Mhm.
because I'm a recruiter. I talk to people all the time. It's something that's almost second nature. Just networking with people. It's fun. I like to learn about other people. And being that I started this company now almost a year ago, I didn't realize the size of it and everything like that. But it really, I just enjoy being a part of being able to grow something.
Yeah.
Like you said, you have to enjoy the work you're doing. And that for the first time, I mean, I'm only 25, but I hope that that's how it goes for the rest of my career. Just enjoying to be able to go into work every day, not have to look at a clock. I'm enjoying it. When it hits 5, obviously, I still want to get out the door because I have other things I got to do. But
hey, you're a homeowner,
right? Yeah, I got to get home. I got to take care of my dog. I got to go do everything else.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not itching for it to be 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
When it hits 5, great. But
yeah,
I enjoy being at work every day, and we just got a brand new corporate building too. So they're putting a Starbucks in it, and I'm like,
there you go.
Yeah, this is gonna be really nice for a while. So,
and I would think too, you're into communications then, a communicator.
Yeah.
As I am too. But I would assume for someone that's a recruiter, the ability and having the ability to listen is much more important than the ability to, communicate.
Absolutely. And the funniest part of that is growing up, my dad said I was a terrible listener because all I did was talk. So, but no, that is a big part of the job. I mean, you really have to, obviously, I'm reading resumes all day long and I have these requirements that I'm trying to fill, different positions, and you have to listen to every conversation. You have to listen to, okay, what makes this person a good candidate for something? I mean, there's really a lot put into it, but the listening side of it, for sure. I have to listen to a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different backgrounds, and I just get to ask questions and have fun with it, honestly.
I think it's cool meeting. I mean, you meet a bunch of people. I would assume.
100%. I mean, recently a lot of it's been over the phone and a lot of like FaceTime, Zoom. I mean, a lot of it. When I was recruiting, I used to work for a staffing agency before that. That was a lot more of the face-to-face interaction. Now it's a lot more. I'm doing it like over the phone. I get a couple Zoom calls and stuff like that. But I've been just doing a lot of it over the phone. But honestly, it's a lot less stressful. It's just I get to talk to people all day long and have conversation instead of going here, going there, and it just maybe something happens though. Like these people are coming into the business, like recruiting. Not to get off a recruiting tangent, but like staffing and recruiting are two different things. And I used to do staffing, which is still recruiting, but you're recruiting for other companies. I get to build my company. I get to build my company from the ground up and my team as well. But that's the cool part about it. I enjoy what I do. So
I'm sorry, but I'm the one asking the questions now.
No, it's okay. It's that's what the shed's for. Whatever you ask.
I'm looking forward to the day where I don't have to wear this.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you miss? I mean, obviously, what we're doing now and doing the Zooms and the FaceTimes and stuff like that. There's value in that, but do you miss that personal connection? The handshake, to be able to sit down and look at someone eye to eye and have a conversation. Is that something that that you miss or not so much?
I do, honestly. I'm such a people person. I mean, I was, social. I'm very socially, out going out. I mean, I'm young and in my 20s, and when I was single, that was a great, going out and being social. That was one thing. But like even the business world and everything like that, I think we've lost such a touch in professionalism in a way. But you have to make do. I mean, we had to do what we had to do to keep everybody safe. I would love to have some sort of a normalcy again. I think we're progressing towards that direction. But I think it's got to get to that point. I think we can't lose that human touch. There's so much to meeting somebody and shaking somebody's hand and having somebody like we're talking here in the shed. This is a genuine, like actual great, conversation. I can be on the phone with anybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody's here in the shed having conversation and just enjoy that personal side of it. It really does have to come back in a way. It just, obviously we have to be precautious and just, and everything that goes on. I mean, my whole thing with the virus, it's real, just like other illnesses. There's all kind of things that are going on in the world. I don't want my family to be a part of the small percentage that is dying. It doesn't matter if it's small or not. I just don't want anybody in that. So
I just feel as if like a recruiter you get so many resumes to look at, but I think you do learn more about a person
when you
with
talk to them.
when you have that, getting that handshake and just, feeling that person out, getting that connection to them
Yeah,
on a
it,
personal
it
basis.
really is hard to read a person by their resume, and it's really
Yeah.
hard to read a person just from a phone call too. There's a lot of different things that people do. I mean, but it really, like you said, it comes down to really meeting somebody. You don't know any one resume from another. This person has a whole life outside of just that piece of paper, their address, and what they did.
Yeah.
They had, like, if you did a resume for me, I mean, you would obviously have Meteorologist, ABC 27, and all the jobs that you had, but nobody would know that you were a farmer, or nobody would know that you're a beekeeper. Those things are important. That's
Yeah.
a part of somebody's life.
You're right. Yep.
That's the craziest part. I always try to get personal with people. I think it's so important to have that personal connection, and the biggest reward to it is people. Like, I love when people say, I miss him being my recruiter. I'm like, that means I did something. I made that connection. That's what I want. So that's what I strive to have here.
And you found the right people.
You find the right people,
Yeah.
and as long as I'm glad I'm doing what I need to do to get to where and in the end, they're getting a job and changing their life.
Yep.
That's the best part of recruiting to me. Well, Eric, I really do appreciate you stopping in here. Shed's a great place, and it's great to have you here. I know it's been busy with this crazy weather season, I can imagine, but I really appreciate you taking time out to come for the season finale of season 2 here. But as always, guys, we wrap up with the final shed thought. And the shed thought I had this week, I've had a lot of conversations with my family recently, and not the best conversations, sadly. And the one thing, it's when I was growing up, I always had conversations with him, my dad's my role model, and he always said the quote, "Blood is thicker than water." And I didn't know what he meant by that when I was a little kid, but that was what I live by that. I mean, that's my shed thought, and that's what I want to end this season on. What blood is thicker than water means is, obviously, your family is everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first and foremost. Now, you have people, you can't choose your family, obviously, but it's still true that blood will always be thicker than water, and that's what's closest to you. Like, your blood is everything, your family is everything, and I want to make sure that everybody, my advice to you with my final shed thought is just tell somebody in your family you love them. Tell them you enjoyed their presence, you enjoy their company, and I think that's so important nowadays, especially with what's going on with the pandemic and what's going on with life and a general election and everything, like what's going on. We lose touch of the most important part of it, and it's right at home. Mm-hmm. I think it's so important, in family, and like I said, my final shed thought this week is blood is thicker than water. And I want you guys all to really think about that one, listening to this podcast. So
we reached a point, it's been almost a year now where we've been dealing with this, and with the winter not being able to get out, you're absolutely right. And even if it's something as simple as like a text, like, "Hey, just wanted to say hi."
Yeah.
To me, those little things, it's just like, hey, someone's thinking about me.
Absolutely.
And I think this is the time where, before we can get into spring and get out, it's a lot of people, and including my own family and my daughters. I can tell they need to have that connection, and yeah, you're right. Family's always first when it comes to a lot of things in my life.
Absolutely, and it absolutely should be. That's who you have in the end. I mean, you obviously have yourself, but your family's always there, and they always will be. Mm-hmm. So, but no, I appreciate you coming out, and I'm glad we were able to wrap the season up in a great manner. So where can everybody find you out on social media?
Well, the good news is there aren't too many Eric Finkenbinders.
That's
true.
If
you do a quick search, I'll probably pop up somewhere, but on Twitter, it's Eric_Fink. I do have a page on Facebook for business for ABC 27. I think it's just under Eric Finkenbinder too. And I can't even remember what my Instagram is. But there is an Eric Finkenbinder, and I'm out there somewhere. Yeah.
Perfect. And yeah, like you said, I mean, we can find you. and you're on TV every day, so we can definitely find you. So.
That personal connection with viewers, I think, is really what I enjoy the most too. And these conversations.
Absolutely. Yeah. But as always, you guys can find me at Tony Shed Talk across the board. You can find us on our Facebook page as well at Shed Talk Podcast. You can find us on our YouTube channel. Please don't forget to subscribe. And also you can find us on any Apple stream, anything on Spotify, Google Podcasts. We're out there, Anchor, at Shed Talk Podcast, and our social medias at Shed Talk Podcast across the board. Thank you guys as always. Great to wrap up here. And as always, we like you, we love you, and we'll see you next season in the shed.